He really disliked Bob Hope. Now we know why. He referred to him as a national treasure on television, but behind the scenes, Johnny Carson disliked Bob Hope. And now, after all those decades of rumors, we finally know why. Hope was the biggest comedy power broker there was, but he used that power to steal, not share. Carson, the undisputed late-night king, ultimately excluded him from The Tonight Show. Off camera, it became one of the chilliest feuds in Hollywood history. What led to the breakdown between these two legends? Why did Johnny Carson, the most affable man in show business, blow his top at last? If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Two legends on one stage. For 3 decades, Johnny Carson welcomed America into his living room 5 evenings a week, with his Midwestern charm, impeccable timing, and real interest in his guests. Carson made The Tonight Show a national institution. When Johnny cracked up, America cracked up with him. When he cocked an eyebrow, everyone on TV knew what he was thinking without saying a word. He hadn't just taken over The Tonight Show. He remade it. Coming after Jack Paar in 1962, Carson took what had been a wild, sometimes contentious show and turned it into television gold. Where Paar was volatile and unpredictable, Carson was calm and controlled. His Nebraskan quietude provided the ideal foil for humor. His responses were frequently wittier than the one-liners. Johnny knew television as well as anybody, said his longtime sidekick Ed McMahon. He knew just the right time to hold a gaze, just the right time to cut in on a story, just the right way to rescue a guest who was tanking. It wasn't about natural talent. It was about craftsmanship. Bob Hope, for his part, had constructed an entertainment empire across vaudeville, radio, movies, and TV. 7 decades in show business made him greater than a star. He was an American institution. Presidents invited his presence. The military loved him for his endless USO tours. His Christmas specials were an American tradition, earning tens of millions of viewers well into the 1970s. England-born and Cleveland-raised, Hope had mastered every medium he undertook. Vaudeville stages, radio waves, cinema screens, and eventually television, where his specials for NBC became a mainstay of the network schedule, were all dominated by him. Bob wasn't a star, he was a corporation, remembered a veteran NBC executive. He had a writer's staff, a production company, business managers, a whole apparatus to keep him at the pinnacle of the entertainment universe. And at its head was Bob, propelling it all forward with sheer will. On the face of it, Carson and Hope should have been natural friends. Elder statesmen and fitting heir. 2 great masters of the game, bound together by their unparalleled influence on the entertainment industry in America. They were the 2 most influential men in comedy, a former NBC executive who knew both of them said. Hope had paved the way that Carson came down, and there ought to have been respect for one another. But behind the scenes, tension lay in wait. When Hope guested on The Tonight Show, the viewing public saw what seemed like friendly sparring between coworkers. Carson introduced Hope with deference, calling him the greatest entertainer of our time and a true American treasure. Hope shot back with his familiar rapid-fire monologues and self-deprecating wisecracks. But the people who worked on the show knew better. The smiles vanished the moment the cameras went off. Carson's warmth, the signature of his hosting, was noticeably lacking with Hope. Chats that came so naturally with other visitors became awkward and robotic. You could sense the room's temperature plummet by 10 degrees when Hope set foot on that set, said a veteran Tonight Show employee. Johnny's smile never touched his eyes. It was like seeing 2 prize-fighters boxing around each other. Carson's crew feared Hope's visits. The requests started weeks in advance of him visiting the Burbank studios. Hope's crew directed detailed requests for lighting, camera shots, and even seat placement, requests no other guest had made. He forced his approval of comedy routines, often disapproving sketches Carson writers had spent weeks working on. Hope made it to The Tonight Show like it was his and not Johnny's, recalled a former production assistant. His team would move furniture around, adjust lights, even tell cameramen where to stand. No other guest would have dared to do that, not even presidents or movie stars. But Hope made like he owned the joint. The query taunted Hollywood executives for years. Why? What had fueled so much hate between two comedy giants? The response was multi-layered. Initially, there was a conflict of comedic ideologies. Hope's approach had been revolutionary once. During the 1930s and 40s, his wisecracking wise guy image, brash but afraid, had delighted people. His populist monologues with jokes about presidents and rationing were innovative. His road films with Bing Crosby defined the buddy comedy genre for decades. But as the years passed, Hope refused to evolve. By the 1980s, his comedy had become formulaic. A joke about his age, a quip about golf, a crack about the president, a line about his wife Dolores, and always a reference to his nose. By the 1980s, Hope was basically doing an impression of Bob Hope, said a comedy writer. He hadn't taken a risk in decades. Carson, on the other hand, admired comedians who remained present in the moment. Don Rickles, Jonathan Winters, Robin Williams. He respected improvisation, truth, and spontaneity. Johnny resented the fact that Hope rode on his good name, said a former writer. He felt Hope wasn't working for his time. Second was Hope's sense of entitlement. Most celebrities bargained with Carson's producers to get on the show, but Hope's people would simply let them know when he would be on. Bob will be on Thursday. They'd tell them, not requesting but commanding. NBC, fearing they would offend their ratings behemoth, obliged. The issue didn't end with booking. Hope arrived with stacks of cue cards containing pre-approved questions and staged answers. Carson's efforts at actual conversation were dismissed. Johnny might as well have been interviewing a brick wall, said one staff writer. Carson grew increasingly frustrated. He took pride in real interaction with his guests. He studied for every interview. He read books by writers, saw movies by directors, listened to albums by musicians. He wanted guests to return the favor halfway with real conversation. Hope, on the other hand, used The Tonight Show as a free plug. It was a one-way street, explained a former segment producer. Hope arrived to promote his specials. He gave nothing in return. Even worse, Hope treated writers poorly. Many legends, Mel Brooks, Neil Simon, Larry Gelbart, got their start working for Hope, but few remembered the experience fondly. He paid poorly and offered no recognition. Carson, by contrast, respected his team, even crediting writers on air. Johnny believed comedy was a craft. One writer said, Hope believed it was a factory. By the late 1980s, Carson's patience was gone. Quietly, discreetly, he snapped. The order came down, don't book Hope anymore. There was no public feud, no harsh words in the press. Carson never explained his decision, not even when asked directly. But inside NBC, the ban was understood. Hope was persona non grata on The Tonight Show. The announcement shocked. Hope had been royalty at NBC since the 1950s. His specials remained top ratings getters, but Carson's authority was absolute. NBC officials, reluctant to risk offending their most important star, stood by him. It created this strange situation, said one talent coordinator. One NBC legend had effectively blackballed another, and the network couldn't do a thing about it. Hope either never realized or refused to acknowledge the snub. He continued speaking warmly of Carson, never publicly addressing the rift. But the absence was glaring. During Carson's 25th anniversary special in 1987, dozens of celebrities paid tribute. Hope was conspicuously missing. For Carson, it wasn't a matter of personal dislike. It was a matter of principle. He felt that Hope was disrespecting the show, the crew, and above all, the viewers. Johnny felt that Hope was wasting people's time, said a pal, and that, to him, was unthinkable. When Carson retired in 1992, Jay Leno immediately brought Hope back onto the show. But the magic was lost. Hope, now in his 90s, had trouble with memory and timing. Television itself had evolved. Carson's template, genuine conversation, authentic moments, was now the norm. Carson departed at the pinnacle of his performance, refusing to outstay his welcome like Hope did. always leave them wanting more, he frequently quipped. Hope, in Carson's estimation, had done the opposite, remained too long, using the same tricks until they were parody. When Hope passed away in 2003 at the age of 100, Carson, retired many years, made a curt, cold remark characterizing him as a friend and an institution. That was all. Respect without feeling. Professional recognition devoid of emotion. The competition had survived even their respective careers. This rivalry wasn't simply about two men. It was about two ages clashing. Hope stood for old Hollywood, scripted, manipulated, larger than life. Carson stood for a new America, talking, questioning, real. Hope instructed viewers on what to laugh at. Carson asked them to laugh with him. Hope was the America of consensus, an historian of culture said. Carson was the America of gentle skepticism. Their confrontation was a turning point in entertainment itself. When Carson banned Hope, he wasn't simply spurning a guest. He was spurning an old model of show business. He was essentially saying that the future was for authenticity, not prepackaged artifice. Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, today's talk show hosts, all adopt Carson's model. Authentic interaction, unscripted laughter, honest-to-goodness conversation. Bob Hope's cue cards and stiff routines now appear from another era. Johnny Carson's unspoken feud with Bob Hope reminds us legends are not immune to the ravages of time, pride, and ego, and it tells us how one man's values change television forever.